The aroma of freshly baked bread mingled with the scent of blossoming jasmine, painting a picture of serene domesticity. Sunlight streamed through the bay window of a quaint Mediterranean villa, illuminating a man with silvering temples, laughing as his young daughter playfully smeared jam across his cheek. To any casual observer, he was merely a doting father, enjoying a peaceful morning with his family. Yet, beneath the veneer of ordinary life, a chilling truth resided. This man, Elias Kassar, was a ghost, a phantom responsible for orchestrating one of the most brutal acts of terror the world had ever witnessed. Years prior, the tranquil streets of a bustling European capital had been irrevocably scarred. A crowded marketplace, vibrant with the chatter of daily life, had been transformed into a charnel house by Kassar's cold, calculated malice. The explosion had ripped through the heart of the city, claiming countless innocent lives, leaving behind a landscape of twisted metal, shattered dreams, and an indelible mark on the collective consciousness. Among the victims was the younger sister of David Amir, a rising star within Mossad. The image of his sister's radiant smile, now forever frozen in his memory, became the searing fuel for his unyielding pursuit of justice. From that day forward, David's life narrowed to a singular, consuming obsession: Kassar. Grief had transformed into a relentless, burning desire for retribution, driving him deeper into the shadowy world of intelligence. Mossad, a clandestine organization known for its unwavering resolve, had hunted Kassar for years. There had been near misses, fleeting glimpses, and countless dead ends that only underscored Kassar's almost supernatural ability to vanish. He was a master of disguise, a chameleon who blended seamlessly into any environment, aided by a meticulously constructed network of protectors and silent sympathizers. The years passed, each one adding to the emotional toll on the agents, particularly David. The endless pursuit, the constant cycle of hope and disappointment, chipped away at their resolve, leaving scars that ran deeper than any physical wound. Now, Kassar lived a life of apparent normalcy, his villa a fortress of false peace, a stark contrast to the devastation he had wrought. The internal conflict within Mossad was palpable. The desire for justice wrestled with the immense risks of a high-stakes operation that could ignite international outrage. Then, a whisper, a cryptic tip, found its way to David. A fragmented piece of intelligence, seemingly innocuous, yet it reignited the dormant hunt with an electrifying jolt. A renewed sense of purpose surged through Mossad headquarters. The early stages of intelligence gathering began anew, a meticulous process of piecing together fragments like archaeologists sifting through ancient ruins for a lost civilization. Suddenly, Kassar made an unexpected appearance. A calculated risk, a public forum in a neutral European city, where he was slated to deliver a seemingly innocuous cultural address. David, watching the grainy feed, felt an electric current surge through him. There he was, older, heavier, but unmistakably Kassar. The moment was a visceral shock, a convergence of past trauma and present opportunity. An initial planning meeting followed, outlining the immense challenges and potential international ramifications. For David, this was more than just a mission. It was a personal reckoning. Kassar's seemingly idyllic family life was a deliberate camouflage, a shield against the very forces David represented. The emotional weight of the mission was immense, understanding the potential collateral impact on innocent lives, even those unknowingly connected to a monster. Then, a flicker of hope, a breakthrough in the intelligence gathering, a thread that promised to unwind Kassar's elaborate deception. David's determination, fueled by years of suppressed rage and sorrow, pushed the team forward despite the inevitable setbacks. Kassar, confident in his untouchability, continued his careful routine, designed to expose any surveillance. The first close call for the Mossad team came swiftly, almost compromising the entire operation. A brief, fleeting interaction between Qassar and his family, a manufactured normalcy, only hardened David's resolve. This was their last chance. He knew it with every fiber of his being. The net, slowly, inexorably, began to tighten around the elusive target. Mossad initiated Operation Chimera, a clandestine surveillance operation designed to pierce through Qassar's intricate web of deception. The surveillance team was a masterclass in diversity, a carefully curated group of highly skilled operatives, each bringing a unique expertise to the table. There were linguists who could discern meaning in the most subtle tonal shifts, tech wizards capable of bypassing layers of digital security, and field agents whose ability to blend into any urban landscape was legendary. They moved like ghosts, their presence unfelt, their observations razor-sharp. Qassar, a veteran of countless clandestine encounters, had erected elaborate security measures around his life, a fortress of counter-surveillance tactics designed to identify and neutralize any threat. He employed rotating security details, unpredictable travel patterns, and encrypted communication channels, making him a phantom in the digital and physical world. The psychological warfare involved in tracking such a high-value target was immense. Every decision, every movement was analyzed for hidden meaning. Every seemingly mundane detail scrutinized for a potential weakness. David, fueled by an almost obsessive drive, pursued every lead, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant. He understood that a tiny crack could shatter an entire edifice of lies. It was during this painstaking process that a stunning discovery emerged. A mole embedded deep within Qassar's inner circle. This was a potential game-changer, a direct conduit into the enemy's heart. The delicate process of turning the mole began, a ballet of manipulation and persuasion. The Mossad agents, experts in human psychology, played on the mole's vulnerabilities, their resentments, their hidden desires for wealth or recognition. It was a high-stakes gamble, fraught with danger. The risks associated with relying on a double agent were immense. The constant fear of betrayal, of a cleverly set trap, hung heavy over every interaction. Yet, the mole delivered. Crucial intelligence flowed, revealing Qassar's current location, and more importantly, his meticulously planned routine. His daily activities appeared mundane, a carefully constructed facade designed to blend into the fabric of everyday life, making him virtually invisible to outsiders. David, however, harbored a growing suspicion about Qassar's family. Were they unwitting pawns in his deadly game, or were they complicit in his atrocities? The ethical dilemmas faced by the Mossad team in observing the target's family were profound. They were innocent, yet inextricably linked to a monster. There were occasional moments of genuine affection Qassar displayed with his children, fleeting glimpses of a tenderness that added a horrifying complexity to his persona. These moments gnawed at David, stirring personal demons, blurring the lines of morality he had once held so rigid. It was a constant battle between professional duty and the ghost of his own past. Under intense scrutiny, Qassar's carefully constructed facade began to show cracks. The Mossad team identified a subtle pattern in his movements, a potential window of opportunity that could be exploited. The internal debate within Mossad leadership regarding the timing and method of the operation intensified. Cautious voices urged patience, advocating for a prolonged surveillance to gather even more intelligence. But David, driven by an unwavering conviction, pushed for swift and decisive action, overriding the more circumspect arguments. He felt the window closing, the urgency palpable. Then a sudden, unexpected change in Qassar's routine threw a wrench into the meticulously crafted surveillance plan. It was a test, a deliberate deviation to expose any trailing shadows. The team adapted quickly, showcasing their ingenuity and resourcefulness, adjusting their positions, their methods, their very breath to remain unseen. The mole, sensing the heightened tension, provided another critical piece of information. Qassar was planning a significant family outing. This was it. David's emotional turmoil intensified as the operation approached its climax. The image of Qassar's unsuspecting family, innocent bystanders caught in a dangerous game, haunted him. The Mossad team grappled with the ethical implications of operating in a public setting, the potential for collateral damage weighing heavily on their consciences. Yet, David's focus remained unwavering, a laser-like intensity directed solely at the mission, despite the moral complexities that threatened to engulf him. Qassar, in his final moments of perceived freedom, remained utterly unaware of the impending fate that awaited him. The meticulous planning for the extraction began. Every detail scrutinized, every contingency accounted for, all aimed at minimizing collateral damage. David delivered his final briefing to the team, his voice low but firm, emphasizing precision and discretion. This was not merely an operation, it was a reckoning. The day of the operation dawned, a pervasive sense of grim determination hanging thick in the air, a palpable tension amongst the operatives. The chosen location was a bustling public square, a vibrant tapestry of daily life, teeming with families, tourists, and vendors, its very ordinariness serving as the perfect camouflage for the impending drama. Every detail of the square had been meticulously mapped, each potential escape route, every vantage point, every shadow noted. The Mossad team, a symphony of professionals, moved through the throng, disguised as ordinary citizens, their eyes scanning, their movements precise, executing their plan with an almost imperceptible grace. Qassar arrived with his family, his wife and 2 young children, their laughter echoing incongruously amidst the unfolding silence of the operation. They settled at an outdoor cafe, ordering lunch, a picture of idyllic normalcy that grated against the dark reality known only to a few. David observed Qassar from a discreet distance, a mix of cold resolve and deeply suppressed emotion warring within him. The terrorist, oblivious, gestured animatedly, sharing a joke with his children, a fleeting moment of vulnerability that twisted David's gut. The internal conflict raged, the cost of justice, the innocence of the family, an unbearable weight pressing down on his conscience. He watched Qassar interact with his daughter, a quick, affectionate ruffle of her hair, and a flicker of something almost human crossed the man's face. It was a terrifying reminder of the duality of evil, the ability to compartmentalize such profound darkness. The Mossad team identified the optimal moment for the takedown, a narrow window of opportunity that would minimize disruption and ensure swift extraction. The square was momentarily less crowded, a lull between the lunch rush and the afternoon stroll. David's calm piece crackled with the signal. He took a deep breath, the weight of years of pursuit, of countless victims, of his own personal loss, culminating in this single, decisive moment. "Go," he uttered, a single definitive word, barely a whisper, yet it reverberated with the force of an earthquake. The movement was swift, almost imperceptible. Like shadows detaching from the crowd, 3 operatives converged on Qassar's table. One moved behind him, another approached from the side, a third created a momentary distraction for the family. Qassar's laughter died on his lips, his eyes widening in momentary confusion, a flicker of dawning horror as he realized he had been compromised. His attempt to resist was brief, a desperate lunge, but the operatives were too skilled, too prepared. He was subdued instantly, his struggles silenced with practiced efficiency. The family's initial shock and confusion quickly morphed into terror. Qassar's wife screamed, a raw, piercing sound that cut through the bustle of the square. The children, bewildered, began to cry, their small faces contorted in fear. David stepped forward, his gaze locking with Kassar's. There was no triumph in David's eyes, only a cold, hard resolve, a silent exchange of defiance from Kassar, met with an unyielding certainty of justice from David. The terrorist, once so untouchable, was now a captive, his reign of terror brought to an abrupt end. Kassar was swiftly extracted, vanishing amidst the chaos, bundled into an unmarked vehicle that melted into the city traffic. The aftermath was a tableau of distraught reactions. The hysterical wife, the sobbing children, the public's confusion turning to murmurs of speculation. The Mossad team, their mission accomplished, executed a swift and clean exit, leaving minimal trace, their phantom presence dissolving back into the anonymity of the crowd. David cast a brief, haunting glance back at the bewildered family. The image of the crying children seared itself into his memory. The immediate debriefing was terse, professional, confirming Kassar's secure capture. A momentary pang of emptiness washed over David, the culmination of years of relentless pursuit, a victory tinged with an unexpected hollowness. Kassar, now bound and blindfolded in the back of a van, finally processed the reality of his capture. The facade of normalcy he had so carefully constructed shattering around him. The Mossad team, despite the grim nature of their work, allowed themselves a quiet, professional satisfaction. A dangerous individual had been brought to justice. Yet David couldn't shake the reflection on the cost of their victory, the collateral emotional damage inflicted on an innocent family. Kassar's family was left to grapple with the shocking reality of their loved one's true identity, their world irrevocably shattered. The initial media frenzy surrounding the mysterious abduction would soon erupt, fueling speculation and fear. David grappled internally with the ethical implications of the operation's execution, the necessity of the public takedown weighing heavily. Kassar's despair would soon set in as he faced the chilling consequences of his actions. The Mossad team, however, held a quiet pride, knowing they had delivered a dangerous individual to justice. David considered the long-term impact on Kassar's family, especially the children, their lives forever altered. Kassar's initial defiance would slowly be replaced by a chilling resignation as the full weight of his fate descended upon him. The immediate global impact of Kassar's capture would be profound, a significant blow to his extensive network. The world reacted with a confused murmur to Kassar's mysterious disappearance, a silence from official channels, only fueling the rampant speculation. Meanwhile, Mossad's covert transport operation unfolded flawlessly, whisking the captured terrorist to a secure, undisclosed location, a black site carefully chosen for its isolation and its advanced interrogation facilities. There, the grim, arduous process of interrogation began, a relentless effort aimed at dismantling his sprawling international terrorist network, piece by painstaking piece. Kassar, true to his notorious reputation, maintained an unwavering defiance, refusing to cooperate, his silence a shield against his captors. David, his presence a constant, unsettling reminder of Kassar's downfall, became deeply involved in the interrogation. He employed a nuanced mix of psychological tactics, probing at Kassar's psyche, searching for the crack in his hardened exterior. During these intense sessions, vivid flashbacks to the victims of Kassar's horrific attacks surged through David's mind. The innocent faces, the shattered lives, the unquantifiable grief. These haunting images reinforced his unwavering resolve, steeling him against any flicker of sympathy for the man before him. Back in the public sphere, Kassar's family struggled immensely with the sudden, harsh glare of public scrutiny and the devastating revelation of his true identity. Their world, once a carefully constructed illusion of normalcy, crumbled under the weight of betrayal and shame. David, from a discreet distance, observed the family's torment, a complex tapestry of guilt and empathy intertwining within him. He saw the children, now marked by their father's sins, and the wife, whose life was irrevocably shattered. Within the cloistered walls of Mossad, an internal debate simmered, a quiet but persistent discussion about the morality of their actions, even as justice had undeniably been served. The ethical cost of their precision strike, particularly its impact on the innocent, weighed heavily on some. Qassar, ever the cunning manipulator, made calculated attempts to twist the narrative, to sow discord among his captors, revealing the depths of his insidious nature. As the interrogations continued, David, with his keen insight and relentless pursuit of truth, began to uncover a deeper, more chilling layer of Qassar's motivations, a twisted, self-righteous ideology that justified his horrific acts. The revelation of Qassar's past betrayals, not just of nations, but of individuals within his own ranks, further solidified his image as a remorseless villain. David meticulously confronted Qassar with irrefutable evidence of his heinous crimes, each piece a hammer blow to the terrorist's carefully constructed persona. In one particularly intense moment, a momentary crack appeared in Qassar's impenetrable composure, a fleeting glimpse of fear, or perhaps even a shadow of regret, quickly masked by renewed defiance. Simultaneously, the wider Mossad team worked tirelessly, extracting invaluable intelligence from Qassar's captured devices, laptops, encrypted phones, hidden data caches. This treasure trove of information began to expose the intricate web of his global operations. Qassar's capture sent seismic tremors across the geopolitical landscape, disrupting established power structures and forcing a re-evaluation of security protocols worldwide. The public condemnation of Qassar's family intensified, leading to ostracization and social isolation. David grappled with the long-term consequences of their actions on these innocent lives, the ripple effect extending far beyond the immediate mission. Qassar, sensing his weakening position, began to offer information, attempting to bargain for his freedom, hinting at crucial details of his network in exchange for leniency. But David's commitment to justice remained unwavering, his resolve unyielding against any compromise. Slowly, agonizingly, Qassar came to the chilling realization of his ultimate fate, the irreversible end of his reign of terror. Armed with the intelligence painstakingly gathered, the Mossad team systematically began to dismantle his network, severing supply lines, intercepting communications, and apprehending key operatives. David experienced a bittersweet victory, the profound satisfaction of justice tempered by the heavy cost of their triumph. Qassar made a final, desperate attempt to escape or undermine his captors, a futile gesture against the impenetrable security. David, however, found himself reflecting not just on the cycle of violence, but on the profound, elusive pursuit of peace. Qassar's family, fractured but not broken, began the arduous process of rebuilding their shattered lives, seeking solace in unexpected corners. The Mossad team, while celebrating their monumental success, remained acutely vigilant, keenly aware that new threats would inevitably rise. David, amidst the quiet aftermath, found a measure of peace, a deep, abiding satisfaction in knowing that justice had ultimately been served. Qassar's ultimate fate was sealed, facing the full extent of the law for his countless atrocities. The initial euphoria of the mission's success began to recede, leaving David to grapple with the emotional fallout, the adrenaline slowly dissipating into a profound weariness. The weight of the choices made, particularly those inevitably impacting Qassar's family, pressed heavily upon him. In quiet moments of reflection, often late at night when the world was still, he questioned the true meaning of justice, wondering if it always necessitated such widespread collateral damage. While Qassar languished in his cell, his family, unwitting participants in his atrocities, struggled to piece together their shattered lives, dealing with the crushing burden of betrayal and relentless public shame. Then, a cryptic message arrived, slipped anonymously into David's secure communication channel. A single, unsettling photograph of Qassar's youngest daughter, clearly distressed, clutching a tattered teddy bear with a vague, almost threatening caption about unpaid debts. It raised new, disquieting concerns within David. Had they truly severed all connections to Qassar's network, or were there lingering consequences they hadn't foreseen? The Mossad leadership, while outwardly applauding the operation, internally grappled with the ethical considerations of their past actions, particularly the ripple effects on Qassar's innocent dependents. David, however, felt a growing, almost visceral sense of responsibility towards these unwitting victims, a responsibility that transcended his professional duty. From behind bars, Qassar, though imprisoned, continued to plot and manipulate, his cunning mind always seeking advantage. He was a master chess player, even when his pieces were limited to the psychological torment of his captors and the subtle influence he still held over remnants of his network. David, disturbed by the cryptic photograph, initiated his own discreet investigation, suspecting either a new emerging threat or a deeply entrenched consequence of the operation itself. He discovered that Qassar's family, already reeling from the public revelations, was now facing severe financial ruin, their assets frozen, their social standing utterly destroyed. They were pariahs, ostracized by a society quick to condemn. David's internal struggle intensified, wrestling with the abstract concept of redemption, not just for Qassar, but for himself and for Mossad's actions. Was there a path to mitigate the harm they had inadvertently inflicted? His reflections were abruptly interrupted by intelligence reports of a former associate of Qassar, a brutal enforcer named Tariq, seeking revenge against Mossad for Qassar's capture. Tariq, a ghost from Qassar's past, now represented a clear and present danger, creating a new, immediate conflict. David, despite his desire for a semblance of normalcy, found himself inexorably drawn back into the fray, unable to fully escape the long shadow of the past. The situation escalated dramatically when Tariq, in a calculated act of terror, inadvertently targeted Qassar's family, viewing them as a means to draw out Mossad. This forced David's hand completely. He, the man who had orchestrated their patriarch's downfall, now found himself in the impossible position of having to protect the very family he had once indirectly harmed. The moral lines blurred further, becoming almost indistinguishable as David, a hardened operative, transformed into a reluctant protector of the innocent. Qassar, from his prison cell, subtly influenced events through a network of whispers and coded messages, seeking to sow chaos and exploit the power vacuum. David faced an excruciating choice: uphold the strict tenets of justice and let Qassar's family suffer the consequences of their father's actions, or protect the innocent, even if they were connected to his most hated enemy. The Mossad team, though initially hesitant, provided reluctant support, understanding David's burgeoning moral imperative. He confronted Tariq, a dangerous individual fueled by a raw, unadulterated thirst for vengeance. Slowly, tentatively, Qassar's family began to trust David, seeing a glimmer of humanity beneath the stern exterior, recognizing his genuine commitment to their safety. David experienced a profound shift in perspective, moving beyond the singular pursuit of vengeance to a broader, more compassionate mission of protection. But Tariq's threat escalated, putting David and Qassar's family in grave danger. David risked his own life repeatedly to safeguard them, throwing himself into the path of danger without hesitation. Qassar, in prison, watched the unfolding events with a chilling, almost satisfied detachment. David's commitment to protecting the family became a deeply personal quest for redemption, a way to atone for the unintended consequences of his past actions. The Mossad team, observing his unwavering dedication, began to recognize David's remarkable growth and evolving moral compass. Under his protection, Qassar's family slowly began to heal, finding solace in unexpected places, their shattered lives gradually mending. David, now irrevocably entwined with the fate of Qassar's family, found himself living under a constant, gnawing threat. Every shadow seemed to conceal a lurking danger, every unfamiliar face a potential assassin. The family, initially a fortress of suspicion and fear, had slowly begun to thaw, their guarded trust a fragile shield against the relentless external pressures. They leaned on him, not just for physical protection, but for guidance in a world that had turned irrevocably hostile. This strange, unexpected reliance forged an unforeseen bond, one that transcended the bitter history that had brought them together. It was during one of David's painstaking analyses of Tariq's network that a more insidious truth began to emerge. Tariq was not merely an avenger. He was a pawn, a blunt instrument wielded by a far more dangerous entity. David's investigation unearthed evidence of a rogue faction within Qassar's own terrorist network, a splinter group that saw Qassar's capture not as a defeat, but as an opportunity. They sought to exploit the power vacuum, to reshape the organization into something even more radical and unpredictable, driven by an ambition that dwarfed Tariq's personal vendetta. This revelation sent a chill down David's spine. He had inadvertently created a monster, or rather, unleashed one. This rogue faction became the new, shared enemy, forcing David and Qassar's family into an uneasy, almost surreal alliance. Their survival hinged on it. From his high-security prison, Qassar received fragmented, often distorted news of this internal upheaval, of the brazen moves made by those who once pledged him fealty. The irony was not lost on him. Unexpected aid arrived from an unlikely source, a former colleague of David's, a brilliant but disillusioned operative named Ilara. She had left Mossad years ago, weary of the moral compromises, but Qassar's family's plight resonated with her own deep-seated sense of justice. Her expertise in counterintelligence and her intimate knowledge of the region proved invaluable. Together, David, Ilara, and even members of Qassar's family, pooling their disparate knowledge, began to meticulously uncover the rogue faction's intricate plans. Qassar's eldest son, Amir, a young man burdened by his father's legacy, possessed a surprising insight into the inner workings of the network, having overheard countless conversations in his youth, dismissed as background noise at the time. These seemingly innocuous details now proved crucial. Mossad leadership, however, remained focused on the broader geopolitical implications. They pressured David to disengage, to abandon Qassar's family, and refocus on the primary mission of dismantling the larger network. But David refused, his voice unyielding. He argued that this new threat was a direct, undeniable consequence of their actions, a hydra head that had sprouted from the very wound they had inflicted. His responsibility, he felt, extended far beyond the initial capture. The rogue faction, sensing David's growing influence over the family, decided to eliminate the problem at its source. They targeted the family directly, orchestrating a series of calculated attacks designed to draw David out and overwhelm them. A brutal confrontation ensued, a desperate fight for survival against a ruthless enemy who knew no boundaries. David's honed skills, his years of training, were put to the ultimate test as he shielded Qassar's wife and children, deflecting blows, returning fire, his body a living barrier against the onslaught. News of his family's peril reached Qassar in his cell. For the first time since his capture, a flicker of genuine, unfeigned emotion crossed his face. Not anger, not defiance, but something akin to fear, perhaps even a twisted form of paternal concern. In a desperate, unprecedented move, David sought information from the imprisoned target, a request that defied every protocol, every ethical boundary. He needed Kassa's intimate knowledge of the network, his understanding of its internal rivalries and weaknesses to combat this burgeoning threat. Kassa, ever the manipulator, saw an opportunity for his own perverse brand of redemption, a way to reassert a modicum of control. He agreed to help, but with conditions, demands that David knew would test the very limits of his conscience. An uneasy, almost unthinkable alliance formed between the hunter and the hunted, a pact born of dire necessity. David navigated the moral complexities of working with a terrorist, each interaction a tightrope walk over an abyss of ethical dilemmas. The family, too, grappled with the notion that their protector was consulting with the man who had shattered their lives, a bitter pill to swallow. Yet, the intelligence provided by Kassa, relayed through clandestine channels, proved invaluable. It was precise, actionable, allowing David to anticipate the rogue faction's moves with chilling accuracy. Armed with this forbidden knowledge, David led a counter-operation, a daring raid on one of the faction's hidden strongholds. The rogue elements were cornered, leading to a tense, violent standoff in a dilapidated industrial complex. David's leadership was tested, balancing strategic precision with the unwavering imperative to protect Kassa's family, who, despite their fear, stood by him. They witnessed his unwavering courage, his dedication, a silent testament to a man transformed. The air crackled with the stench of ozone and gunpowder as the dilapidated industrial complex became a battleground. David, his face streaked with grime and sweat, moved with the efficiency of a predator, each movement precise, deadly. The rogue faction, cornered and desperate, fought with frenzied abandon, their loyalty to their new leader absolute. David's eyes, however, never left Kassa's family, who huddled behind a stack of rusted barrels, their faces pale with terror. He barked orders, a symphony of controlled chaos, directing his small team, a handful of loyal Mossad operatives who, despite their earlier reservations, now trusted his judgment implicitly. A sudden explosion ripped through a nearby wall, sending shrapnel whistling past David's ear. One of the rogue operatives, a hulking figure with a scar bisecting his face, lunged towards the family's makeshift sanctuary. Time seemed to slow. David, without a second thought, threw himself in front of the approaching threat, absorbing the impact, a guttural cry escaping his lips as a searing pain shot through his shoulder. The operative's blade, meant for Kassa's wife, instead found David's flesh. He gritted his teeth, twisting, and with a surge of adrenaline-fueled rage, neutralized the attacker. The family watched, wide-eyed, as their protector, bleeding but unbowed, ensured their safety. The battle raged for what felt like an eternity, but eventually the last of the rogue faction fell. Silence, thick and heavy, descended upon the complex, broken only by the ragged breaths of the survivors and the distant wail of sirens. David slumped against a cold metal beam, his injured shoulder throbbing, but a profound wave of relief washed over him. The family was safe. Kassa's wife, her eyes brimming with tears, rushed to his side, her hands hovering uncertainly over his wound. Her gratitude was palpable, a silent, powerful acknowledgement that transcended language. The children, initially frozen in shock, now clung to their mother, but their gazes, filled with awe and a burgeoning trust, were fixed on David. It was a moment of deep, unspoken reconciliation, a bridge built over years of betrayal and pain. News of the rogue faction's defeat and the family's rescue reached Kassa in his high-security cell. The stoic mask he had worn for so long finally fractured. A flicker, almost imperceptible, of genuine emotion crossed his face. Not the twisted satisfaction of a manipulator, but something akin to relief, perhaps even a nascent sense of responsibility. It It was a fleeting glimpse of the man he might have been before his path diverged into darkness. Back at Mossad headquarters, the leadership, initially skeptical of David's unorthodox methods, now conceded his success. His unconventional approach, while fraught with ethical complexities, had ultimately dismantled a dangerous new threat and, inadvertently, solidified their intelligence network. David, however, felt no triumph. He sat in his office, the sterile silence a stark contrast to the recent chaos, reflecting on the arduous journey from vengeance to protection. He had sought retribution, but found a deeper, more profound meaning in safeguarding innocence. The time came for his final, poignant confrontation with Qassar. David walked into the sterile visitation room, the air heavy with unspoken history. Qassar, thinner, paler, but still possessing an unnerving intensity, sat opposite him. No words were exchanged, not at first. A silent understanding passed between them, two adversaries forever linked by fate, by blood, and by the strange, twisted alliance they had forged. Qassar, with a subtle inclination of his head, offered a reluctant acknowledgement of David's actions, a silent recognition of the protection David had afforded his family. It wasn't forgiveness, not truly, but it was a concession, a fragment of humanity, from a man who had long denied his own. David left the prison, the weight of their shared history settling upon him. He knew Qassar's ultimate judgment awaited, a life confined, a reckoning for his heinous crimes. But for David, the cycle of vengeance had been broken. Qassar's family, now truly free from the shadow of terror and betrayal, began the arduous process of rebuilding their lives. They found a new sense of peace, a quiet hope that blossomed from the ashes of their past, all thanks to David's intervention. He, in turn, found a new purpose, not just in justice, but in preventing future suffering, in protecting the innocent from the very darkness he had once embodied. His personal journey of healing and self-discovery, though far from over, had found its true direction, guided by the quiet triumph of redemption. Years later, the world had indeed become a slightly safer place, not through grand pronouncements, but through the quiet, persistent efforts of individuals like David. He was no longer the haunted, vengeful agent consumed by the past. Instead, he had ascended to a respected position within Mossad, leading a new initiative. This program focused less on reactive strikes and more on proactive prevention, on understanding the roots of radicalization, and even, subtly, on rehabilitation pathways for those who might be swayed by dangerous ideologies. It was a testament to his transformation, a shift from the sharp edge of retribution to the broader embrace of sustainable peace. Qassar's family, once ostracized and adrift, had fully integrated into society. They lived quiet, productive lives, their past a distant, almost forgotten nightmare. The children, now young adults, were thriving, pursuing their own dreams, blissfully unaware of the full, brutal extent of their father's history or the intricate dance of death and redemption that had saved them. David maintained a subtle, protective watch over them from a distance, a silent guardian angel whose presence was never felt, only inferred in the continued normalcy of their lives. He saw their laughter, their successes, their everyday moments, and found a quiet sense of satisfaction that resonated deeper than any medal or commendation. Qassar's legacy, once a terrifying shadow, had been reduced to a cautionary tale whispered in hushed tones among intelligence circles. His power was diminished, his network dismantled, his influence a ghost of its former self. He remained confined, a stark reminder of the consequences of his choices, his life a stark contrast to the freedom and joy his family now experienced. David often reflected on the arduous journey, the immense sacrifices made along the way, and the ultimate triumph of humanity over the destructive forces of hatred. He would sometimes catch glimpses of the family living their happy, unremarkable lives in public, a sight that filled him with a profound, almost spiritual calm. He had broken the cycle of vengeance, not just for himself, but for them, offering them a future unburdened by the sins of their father. Mossad, too, had evolved. The team continued its vital work, but with a renewed sense of purpose and a finely tuned ethical awareness, shaped in no small part by David's unconventional successes. His personal life, once consumed by the mission, had found a new balance. He had reconciled with his past, not by forgetting it, but by transforming its pain into a potent force for good. The final scene often found David standing at a window, looking out over a city bathed in the soft glow of dawn, a hopeful horizon stretching before him. He was ready for new challenges, his spirit renewed, his purpose clear. The enduring message of redemption, forgiveness, and the profound power of human connection resonated through his every action. The world remembered Qassar's capture as a critical turning point in the relentless fight against terror, a moment when justice was served, but also when a new path towards understanding began to emerge. David's story had become an inspiration, a testament to courage, resilience, and an unwavering moral strength that transcended the conventional boundaries of espionage. Qassar's ultimate fate was sealed, a life of confinement and reflection, a solitary existence far removed from the world he once terrorized. The family's journey from victimhood to resilience stood as a powerful example of the human spirit's capacity to heal and thrive. David's legacy was one of unwavering dedication to justice, tempered by an extraordinary compassion that allowed him to see the innocent amidst the guilty. The ending left a profound sense of hope, a belief in a better future, where even the darkest acts could lead to an unexpected dawn. The final shot emphasized David's quiet strength, his enduring commitment to protecting the innocent, and the lasting impact of the operation, not just on the target, but on all involved. His personal growth was evident, a transformation from vengeance to wisdom, a living testament to the power of one individual to make a profound difference in a complex and often cruel world.